atheists, agnostics, or describe their religion as nothing in particular. In Ghana, our last census shows that out of 32 million people plus, we have over 350,000 of our population who identify as non-religious. For those who don't know the difference between atheists and so on, I'll give brief descriptions of it before we all move on, so we are all on the same page. So an atheist is basically, atheism is an atheist is a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods, but I would term it as the rejection of the claim of the supernatural. An agnostic atheist is someone who does not believe in the existence of any gods, but also believes that the existence or non-existence of a god is unknowable. They don't hold a positive belief in God, but also acknowledge that they can't definitely prove God's non-existence. And with humanism, I will use the Humanist International's minimum statement. It's quite a mouthful, so I'll just use the more simpler definition for it. So humanists base their understanding of the world on reason and science, rejecting supernatural or divine beliefs. But if I should use the minimum statement, humanism is a democratic and ethical life stance. Keywords are democratic and ethical, which affirms that human beings have the right and responsibility to give meaning and shape to their own lives. It stands for the building of a more humane society through an ethic based on human and other natural values in the spirit of reason and free inquiry through human capabilities. It is not theistic and it does not accept supernatural views of reality. So we can all understand how what humanism is, what atheism is, and how they intersect. So for our first speaker for this event, what we seek to do with Reason Rising is to call for the promotion of critical thinking and intellectual discourse in Africa. We are going to have a presentation from our first speaker, and there'll be opportunities for questions and answers. And when it reaches that time, we'll let you know. But we want to get to know who Mubarak is and his whole very interesting story, even within a very short time. He's a very young person, but he has such an interesting life, which is inspirational to a lot of people. I would like to ask once again, if you don't want your face to be shown on this recording, you can turn off your video, but please turn off your mic until you are all asked. So I'd like to introduce our speaker. Mubarak Bala is the former president of the Humanist Association of Nigeria. He was raised a staunch Muslim in a family of a long line of Islamic clerics. About 12 years ago, he came out as atheist, and his family had him admitted to a psychiatric hospital until he was able to escape, and he became an advocate for atheist rights and advocacy, especially for Almajiri children in Nigeria. I think he will tell us more about what who Almajiri children are and what their plight is. But from my understanding, they are children who are kind of sold into slavery and prone to recruitment by Islamic terrorist groups such as Boko Haram. Mubarak has participated in several atheist conferences as a panelist, such as the Atheist Society of Nigeria's National Convention in 2017 and the second African Humanist Youth Days in Lagos, which I also helped to organize in 2017. In April 2020, at the height of COVID, he was promptly arrested after complaints of his Facebook posts by a Muslim youth group and eventually sentenced to 24 years in prison. Fortunately, after much advocacy for his release by Humanist International and other groups, he was released after 5 years and relocated to Europe. We are glad to have him here as our first guest for this program series to share his story. Thank you, Mubarak, for coming. So I'll go dive into the first question. So if you can tell us briefly, how did you convert from Islam? How did you deconvert from Islam in the first place? We know that you come from a long line of clerics, so your family, born into a family of Muslims, you were indoctrinated to be a Muslim. But what informed your choices of leaving Islam?
Well, thank you, Rose, for having me. And thank you all. I'm seeing familiar faces and I'm seeing a lot of you that have advocated for my freedom over the years. And before I forget, I'll thank everyone. And we've already discussed with a lot of you in private. So thank you again for all the advocacy and the help and the rescue and the publicity that got me where I am today. So thank you. So first, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Mubarak. I was born Muhammad Mubarak, as I said, from, northern Nigeria, which is the Sahel region of Africa. And I have already, I think most of the audience would have heard maybe how indoctrination works in my society. It's more, I think it's more intense than the Middle Eastern indoctrination. Ours is more, I could say more like an Afghan or Pakistani intensity of indoctrination, which is, I think if I met Arabs, I realized that, wow, you're so liberal. How come you have the religion and it's your culture? And I'm more practicing than you are. It happened that a few individuals I grew up with went to school in Dubai, and the first experience they had was that Arabs don't pray. Arabs are not religious. Why are we religious? It's like they're going to hell and we're going to paradise. We are the best, we are the better. And I observed that whenever there are terrorist attacks, we have these kind of cultures coming to the forefront to celebrate terrorism and jihad more than even those in the Middle East have experienced it. In fact, 2.5 decades ago, when September 11th happened, my region of the country, Northern Nigeria, celebrated it like it's the beginning of a new era for them. And it's sad that I could remember I bought a poster with Bin Laden here. He wasn't, I think they just made it up, but he was in a fighter jet. And the posters were everywhere on buses. You know how people celebrate celebrities on buses and everywhere. And it was for sale. And I bought one and I pasted it behind our gate in the house. And people came and everyone would come and salute. Yeah, this is the hero. This is the hero. I was just 16. I just graduated from secondary school. And immediately I realized, wow. So now, because I already had these kind of doubts, but now as the excitement carried everyone, I was just excited that the jihad is coming, jihad is coming. But then I realized, wow, gradually as I was following the fights through the Middle Eastern wars, I came to be reasoning, why should this, we are complaining that we are the victims, right? But then I am realizing that we're not really victims of anything. Someone went and made an attack and there is retaliation and now people are crying that the American, hegemons are killing Muslims and attacking Muslim countries. And the mosques were all rampant with all these sermons and preachings. This is what led directly to the Boko Haram activities a decade later. So our country, our part of the world is just, as I said, just Afghanistan. I could have ended up a jihadi. I think there are several times I was feeling that if there is a call for jihad, I'll volunteer. This is how fanatical I was growing up. And I think I disappointed my family because I was more agitated about Islam than anyone in the family. And I realized gradually, how come I am the one that is seeing that there are holes? I am the one asking the questions. No one is asking questions, but I was asking questions. And you know, it's normal when you're asking too much questions. People would wonder, why are you getting these ideas from? Who are your friends? And I think about a decade later, when I ended up in the university and my brain exploded with ideas and liberalism, because I grew up without real contact with non-Muslims. My primary school is a Saudi-funded primary school. We don't have contact with non-Muslims. As a growing child, I had zero contact with any non-Muslim. I hadn't known any. And the only few I have known are people living around the area. But gradually, as the Sharia riots came about, people started leaving the region of northern Nigeria. You know, as the military withdrew from governance, we have freedoms. But the freedom now made it that now everyone had a voice. So these people that were agitating for the Sharia now had a voice. So gradually, I gravitated away from doctrinal Islam. The more I lived outside of my home state of Kano State, the more I met people that are supposedly my enemies. I was always on the assumption that there were enemies all around, and most especially Christians. And I think it's sad to say that the moment I look back, I'll just feel, who did this to us? Who did this to me? And sometimes you blame the family, but then you have to also, expand the horizon and realize the whole region is a whole big cultural problem we have. Even to this day, where I failed to be accepted by my people is because I'm not supposed to be accepted. I was invited just a few months ago to the Eid in another city by people of my tribe, the Hausa people of northern Nigeria. And immediately I was there, I stood out because now I was asking, where are the Christians? Where are Christian Nigerians? These are festivities, it's Eid. Where are everyone? And I've seen Somali Muslims, I've seen Sudanese Muslims, but where are the non-Muslims? If it's a festivity, I'm the only non-Muslim. And in fact, it wasn't even announced I was not a Muslim or I was that Mubarak until at the end of the program, to which everyone now started turning, really, is that person? So I think I came a long way. Looking back, I could remember my brother telling me that the world is spherical. This is the brother that injected me to unconsciousness a decade ago. But when I was growing up, he was my mentor about science. He would come to tell me, because he was in secondary school, I was in primary school. He would tell me about how science, how the world works. This is how the planets are. And it was an exciting idea because we don't speak English. I think I couldn't understand English until about 2001, 2002. That was around the times when I left secondary school. I had no idea what English is. I could sit for an exam, but it's about to read, just to read what you can and transcribe it back to the teacher. You're not really getting what it is in English. But the moment I started watching the news and watching movies, then I realized, wow, there's so much to this world that there is, as I would assume. And especially given that you're in a system that excluded everyone else. There were no Muslims in my no non-Muslims in my childhood, especially primary school. And I went to also a no exclusive Muslim secondary school. This is a private school, but there are no non-Muslims allowed. But this is not a madrasa. Why it's very unique is because it's a private school for the elite, children of the elite of the region, but they don't allow non-Muslims, even though they teach science, chemistry, physics, biology, geography, but no non-Muslim is allowed. I think these are the unhealthy kind of cultures we are supposed to outface by now. The government are supposed to realize the damage it is doing to societies such as ours. So I understood science, and then my conscience grew. And I believe in my teenage years, I started with, especially with the Afghan and Iraq wars, that's when there were conflicts. I could see that some things are wrong. The people that are doing the killing are actually crying to be victims. And I wouldn't agree with that. And most times I would come and argue with friends who are obviously Muslim, and I would be cautioned that your faith is shaken. Mubarak, your faith is shaken. Who is teaching you these kind of things? And I would say, well, I'm just observing and getting to the grasp of these things. And I think the Taliban are wrong. These are the times of the jihad with the Ladens. And I said, the Taliban are wrong. Don't you think we are wrong? Don't you think this is wrong? And people will say no. But then obviously you would realize you're getting in more trouble than you should. And I think by the time I was 20, that was the time I felt I'm not a Muslim. I haven't known the names really, because I stopped practicing. I believed more in science. I understood science. I understood evolution very well. I was very good in science, even though I couldn't admit that some of it is true, but I believed it was the argument. So there was a time I made an argument that now I'm trying to judge the Quran by science. And a friend of mine cautioned that you're getting it wrong. You're supposed to judge science with your Quran. I said, no, the other way. I'm judging the Quran with science. And he was so scared for me. He said, don't you think you're getting things? Because by then I was already weird to them. They just think that, what in the world would you ever doubt your faith? And if I mentioned that I believe man landed on the moon in 1969, people would wonder, where are you getting these ideas? This is before the internet. This is before we had all this YouTube, where I just read about it and I believed it's true. And in the Quran, it says the moon is in the fourth heaven, the sun is in the fifth heaven, and Allah is coming down to these heavens, about the 7 layers of the heaven. Allah is on the 7th heaven. And most times, if I try to bring together these two, it doesn't make sense to me, but then people would call it blasphemy. But I was always curious to discuss it with people. I never wanted to keep it by myself. And those were the symptoms. Now people started observing that I was really crazy. If I wondered where is hellfire, where are we going after we die, I asked too many weird questions that you're not supposed to voice out, even if you felt it. Even literally to this day, my people believe you think with the heart. If I ever argue with a friend I've grown up with, and I told him that we think with the brain, and I brought the idea that mad people don't have heart problems. And these are simple arguments you would bring to any Muslim. But the moment you bring it up and he remembers that he's going against God or against his religion, then he would say, no, let's stop this discussion. I don't want to be part of it. Just the brain. And I would say, okay, the maker of the human body ought to have known the heart's function is just to pump blood, and the brain is supposed to think for us. And if I wrote several essays about this, because my father is a journalist with the BBC and with Daily Trust. So I would write whatever I could of science and what I think was right, and I'll submit to my father for publication. And it never got published. Most of it never got published. And my father called me weird. He always called me weird, that why am I getting these ideas from? But then one day he reminded me that as a child, I sat him down and I asked him, where is Allah and who made Allah? And I remember that I did ask, and I was wondering, I asked one specific question to which my dad had to turn and look at me. I said, so if another God had made himself before Allah, what it means is that God is God, and now our Allah is not God. This is just a toddler age question that now I remember actually my brain working to grasp things. I think in the initial stage of my deconversion, because it took so many stages. Sometimes you swing to agnosticism, other times you go to the extreme, which is atheism, and then another time you just want to swing back because you don't feel safe. Because the moment I feel I'm alone, I'm losing friends, I'm losing connections with my family, and sometimes you look at it that you are in a society. This is before the internet. You are in a society that everyone is okay in the brain. And people are doubting your own sense. And then you would wonder, how can I ever be right where all these people are wrong? Then it can't be. So the argument would always bring me back. Then I'll say, okay, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I have to ask enough. So I would go back to the Quran, and sometimes you just force yourself to swallow it back. Even to this moment, I have friends that have deconverted, but then are still living in the society. And with my case, now they have to, adapt to the society. The first things they'll tell you is that you just have to swallow it back. And regrettably, for their safety, most of them have actually done what they could. Some have publicly renounced atheism. Others have went back into their shells. And I think the tragedy mostly is the cultural repercussions. First, when you convince yourself, for example, I had to accept myself as an atheist, even though it scared me. But after accepting yourself, then gradually you would want your culture to align with your philosophy, with your thinking. But then you have the biggest backlash. And immediately I started with my family. It led me to a psychiatric hospital, as you may know, even though people don't know this, that the psychiatric doctor that was introduced, I was introduced to him, he said, it's not insanity. it's not really madness. This is as a consultant doctor. And he gave me a clean bill of health, and I was very glad. I was very confident because I felt he has given me a stamp that what you're reasoning is good. He only asked that you know how your people are, you know how the society is, so try and manage yourself as best as you can for safety. And I said, yeah, this is why I'm not really too vocal about it. I was only vocal when Boko Haram started attacking, and I realized either I speak out or people in the delusion, because I realized we're in a trance. People are just sleepwalking towards an abyss, and they don't really see it. And I felt, if I know the truth, why shouldn't I tell people? I really didn't care if they are atheists or if they left the religion. This is not what I wanted to do. I was trying to counter the jihadism, because the potential that I could have turned up a jihadi is the same potential, because I have classmates, I have people that I grew up with, and they became jihadists. A friend of mine that we went to the same secondary school with actually dumped his certificates and burned it and went into the jihadi camp. He was a prefect in the school. Kali, we called him. His name was Kali. But he joined the jihad. And a lot of people, even though they don't have the confidence to join the jihad, to join the terrorism, they would tell you in private that this is, especially my senior brother, who has not spoken to me in a decade. I think only after my release last year that I went home and I met him. He was living in Saudi Arabia, and I forced myself to speak to him. He forced himself actually to speak back, because I tried to normalize a relationship. Because since he gave me that injection, he avoided me, and we haven't spoken for a decade. So my brother in private really feels that terrorists are right. We're supposed to bring back the culture of jihad. We're supposed to bring back, especially in my family that have fought in the jihad 2 centuries ago. I think I lost an ancestor in the Osman Danfodio jihad during those times. And this is part of the, the pride of my family, that we are part of the struggle to bring about Sharia, to bring about this, to bring about that. And my father's motivation actually for us to be educated is so that we can have both arms ready. Western education, Islamic education, then you're good to go. So I was just the recruit. I was supposed to be the recruit for jihad. And I think it saved me that science and my conscience, especially my conscience, because not understanding science and not believing Islam is one thing. But the jihad aspect, why I always mention jihad, is because your conscience cannot really grasp why the merciful God wants people killed. Why does this God want people killed? And then you see a beheading and you want to reason with another person, especially a Muslim.
So what I'm seeing from your story is that a lot of it came from your science, your the more understanding you had about science, it was conflicting with your beliefs. And then the idea of sympathy and why you were not seeing it from people who also identified as Muslims and calling themselves jihadists and using that. We should have a whole other program on this issue. I mean, I would like to know more about Islam and all that. And I think the more we understand it, the more we can also understand why people still believe in Islam and don't. I mean, when I left Christianity, I just didn't go straight to atheism. I also tried to see, is there any other religion that conforms to what I think is true? And I had Muslim friends that approached me about why Islam is true. I read a whole book about it, and it even convinced me to be more atheist. But for others, it might change their mind. So yeah, we'll delve into that. Hopefully there's more time, but already we've gone through 30 minutes. So I will ask right now at this point, you identify as a humanist. What does humanism mean to you in one sentence? What does humanism mean to you?
Well, I think free inquiry and rational thinking, as well as the science that I always emphasize on, which is, I generalize it to mean education generally, proliferation of education, especially the freedom to acquire knowledge and to bequeath it or freely air it, as well as democracy. Although I think I have already made an exclusion with democracy, because there are a lot of people in my culture, if you give them democracy, they will bring about the Taliban system. The moment they're given the choice, they would want a Talibanist system back. Yes, so I think this is why
Wow.
you have the Boko Haram and all other agitators,
Yes.
because in the moment
Yes.
democracy comes, I think this is why you see coups in the Middle East, especially if
Yeah.
there are elections in Egypt.
I
You
think
see
I
them
agree with you
voting for
on that
Muslim
to some
Brotherhood.
extent, because we should see that democracy in general, it's helpful, and a lot of us believe in it because it gives people the freedom for their independent thoughts, for their independent decision, and it's inclusive. But I do agree that I think depending on where you're coming from, you would have to put in certain things, because we are seeing it happening around the world, not only in Africa, not only in the Middle East. We are seeing far right groups, very extremist groups, in not necessarily based on religion, but on certain ideologies, who are using the democracy as a tool to impose and enforce their beliefs. So I definitely agree with you on that. But yeah, so I wanted to, I mean, you mentioned about your detention in the psychiatric hospital, but I wanted to find out, like, how did it happen? You woke up one morning and your brother injected you with something. I mean, that's even dangerous. It's not a medical practitioner, is he? And so I don't know, like, what, how did that happen that day? Like,
Well, okay. So the background is that I was supposed to go for a master's degree in the UK, and I felt my mother has to know, because they would blame the UK system that it's changed me away from Islam, while I have not been a Muslim for about 5 years. This was 2013. So I said to my mother, actually, I said, well, I don't really pray. I don't believe in God. I know God, especially this God doesn't exist. And this Boko Haram that is killing is actually from the Quran. I brought verses for her to compare, and hadiths. And I said, this is what brings about this terrorism. And I don't want to be a part of it. I have quit being a part of it for years, and I don't pray. I don't fast. I am only doing it for your faces. And I told her that there is no life after this one. If we die, we are dead. There is no rising after death. So it scared her. And I told her, just for you to know, it's just for you to know and nobody else. If I go to the UK, I will make a formal announcement to my family and to everyone else. But she was scared for me. So she told my father that your son is in trouble. He doesn't think there is afterlife. And immediately, that's when my dad now mentioned that if you are really thinking like that, you have to see a psychiatrist. And I was very confident. In fact, I said, okay, we go with family members so that they can explain what the problem is. So we went with family members, and the doctor asked, okay, what are his symptoms? They said, well, he doesn't pray. He said God doesn't exist. They mentioned atheism and other stuff. Then he said, this is not really psychosis. This is not madness. You have to just preach to him and pray. They told him that this is actually the person that is the most religious in the house, the one we had hoped could be an imam in the future or something. So he just advised that they only have to pray or preach to me or argue it with other rational thinking, maybe trying to argue back the religion. And he sent us off. That was 2013. My brother is a practicing medical doctor in Saudi Arabia for about 10 years at that time.
okay.
So he is a graduate of medicine, yeah, but he practiced in London, UK, and then he went to Saudi Arabia with his family and lived there for about 10 years. After the doctor has already dismissed the case, 6 months later, my brother flew in from Saudi Arabia into Nigeria, made arrangements with my father, because as Boko Haram was going intense with the killings, I was also being more vocal about it, because they were recruiting online, and I was countering the recruitment with that there is no life after death. If you just explode yourself, you're wasting your life, you're going nowhere. And so friends were now complaining back home to my father, and my father now was convincing everyone that he's actually crazy, but we are trying to get the hang of it, how we could handle it. So in 2014, around June, the family meeting came, and they came around, and I didn't know that they already had another doctor pre-arranged with whatever arrangement my father has made. Is not the previous doctor. So this new doctor, what he did is that he The moment they said I should see another psychiatric doctor, obviously I would be very confident. I said, well, let's go. So I sat there, and the doctor immediately said, they said you don't believe in God. I said, yes, I don't believe in God. Then he said, well, everyone needs a God, even in Japan. Even in Japan, they have a God. And my father is right there sitting down, because this time my father wanted to be sure. And there were times if I mentioned things, then I'll say Muhammad, which is the prophet. And my father would just be scared. He would just raise the voice that people in the room, in the medical consulting room, that they have to say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, peace be upon him. That he's just mentioning the prophet with all respect. This is part of the madness. So my father was really panicking. I would just be wondering, I would just be laughing. Why is this man looking like a crazy person? He was panicking that I'm not really respecting the prophet. I said the Quran is, because he has only heard what I'm saying. I've never had the confidence to speak to him about it. But now he's sitting with a doctor, and I was saying it, there is no God. Yeah, we are only living once, and we are dying after this one, and there is no life after death. And all the Quran is bullshit. And then he will just wonder, who? I think I remember he wrote after in an article that he never realized that he has given birth to a monster, that they are acquiring monstrous ideologies, as if I was Boko Haram. Boko Haram was killing people. But so immediately after that, so the doctor just started writing medicine for me, epilepsy. I think he wrote an epileptic drug. He wrote antipsychosis, that I was crazy. And I was just laughing. And I said, okay, maybe you take it, because I think obviously you're the ones that are crazy. So I stood to leave. So now I left home. I left the doctor's office, and I went home, and I picked my phone, and I called a friend. I said, you have to come and pick me up, because this family is crazy. They're saying I'm already crazy. So the friend just gave me 48 hours to make arrangements to come and pick me up. And within these 48 hours, my father made arrangements with uncles, and they all came for a family meeting. And immediately I was summoned into the room to sit and discuss. The violence started, because my father said, you have to take medicine. And I said, wow, okay, I'm leaving the house for you. There shouldn't be any trouble. And I stood to leave, and my father just stood by force and grabbed me back and started calling the uncles, come, grab him, grab him. And before you know it, we were wrestling. I was trying to break away, and people were just pouncing on me and beating me down. And then my father held me by the neck. I think I felt how I was almost asphyxiating. So I leaned back by force, and we fell down. My dad is very huge. He's almost 2 meters tall. So we fell, and this is how they now bundled me back. And I could remember seeing my mom pacing up and down, worried what was happening, because she knew she created the trouble. So I have known what they could do, but I thought I would die at that moment. But I just gave them a last laugh, and I said, I knew you would do this, but you should know that I'm right and you're wrong. And this is part of the terrorism we are doing, because you obviously are supporting Boko Haram. So my brother came out with his, because they've already arranged for everything. So he came out with an injection, and he put it there, and he said, if you shook your hand, it is going to injure you, so you better obey. And so my hand was tied, and within few seconds, I lost consciousness. I could remember episodes for about 2 days where I would wake up and I'll see my father or brother sitting by my side in a psychiatric hospital with other patients. There are patients also taking medications. And I would see my brother picking a red pill medicine. That's how I didn't know the medicine then. I only knew they were medicating me, and I couldn't do anything. And I felt so weak, I couldn't move. For 2 days, I couldn't move. So they would just give me the medicine. Sometimes they put it in my mouth. Sometimes they put it in my tea, and they give me to drink. And gradually, I realized maybe this is my fate, because there was not much internet then. It was very new. BlackBerry was just coming. Then a few friends that have known the arguments over the 2 years that we have been arguing came around and saw that there were really crazy people where I was, because it's a big ward. And they complained to my father that it's not really, we have this in our culture, there is that phobia about mental illness, and I think there is a stigma attached to it. So immediately they saw it, they felt it's an insulting way of handling me. So they protested that I shouldn't be, even if I was crazy, I shouldn't be in that kind of room. So they asked I should be given an amenity room, which is a private room, and I was taken there. And it had TV, it had internet and some privacy. It had a toilet. So immediately my mom came and I regained some of my strength, and I told her, you see what you have caused. Now I know I'm not going to the UK for any masters, and now I know I'm here forever. And from the hint of it is that the family had already met and have decided that my senior brother, who flew in from Saudi Arabia, is taking me back as a patient into Saudi Arabia, where he will cage me, where the government, a responsible government, could really handle me if I ever chose not to pray or not to fast. Yeah, so this is the arrangement. In fact, an uncle, a sympathetic uncle, called because I got my phone later, because when I complained to my mom, I told her, this is the trouble you made. So give me my phone, let me seek for help. So they made an arrangement and a friend smuggled the phone for me. Immediately I opened my phone, I saw that on my Facebook, my father has already declared the Shahada, converting me back to Islam. I only had about 200 friends. Facebook was not really popular then, but he posted about converting to Islam on my Facebook to show that I have converted. That was the last post. And I checked the time. It was immediately after I went unconscious in the evening that he did that. So it was not really about mental illness. He really wanted to cover up his tracks. And I think he wrote several times about it, that he is not really ashamed. He said what he wrote is that for Muhammad, we are ready to do anything. For Muhammad, we are fanatical. For Muhammad, we can do anything on anyone. This is what he wrote on the Northern Nigerian main newspaper. He always had the back page of it. So I was appalled when I saw that. I was very angry, and I took my phone and I went to Twitter. I had few friends on Twitter, so I was asking people that, please, if you can give me your email, I'll send you a message. So I wrote an email draft, and whoever I could get on Twitter, I think I didn't know much about atheism, but I knew this is the kind of people I agreed with on most occasions. So I said, let me just talk to this one, talk to that one. Then immediately I wrote the email and what the family did, and I passed it around. This is how it got to CNN, got to ABC News, and everyone else now picked it up. And immediately it came into Nigeria. The hospital didn't have a website. The doctors are analog. They don't have anything. So to reach to the hospital was the biggest trouble. And I could remember Bamidele and others were scrambling around to see how they could handle the hospital. And the hospital is not online, it's analog. And I was being force-fed medicine. So yeah, gradually, although I tried to resist the medicine, but I have realized that the moment you resist, you have the symptoms. Now you are resisting medication because you are ill. So I played along as if I was taking the medication, but I'll hide it in my mouth, and sometimes I'll just spit it out. Other times I was gathering it against the hospital for evidence. But so now immediately the matter reached the media houses, and my father came around. What he did was just to get me my things and dump them and say he has no hand in whatever happens to me and I should be let go. But by then I think the BBC has already picked it, and especially the BBC House picked it. Immediately they posted it. Someone has left the religion. Northern Nigerian Muslims started with all the killing threats and everything. This is not about blasphemy, mind you. This is a decade ago. I wasn't accused of blasphemy. But if you left the religion of Islam, you're supposed to be killed. This is the immediate repercussion of publicly leaving Islam. So everyone was now crying that Mubarak should be killed, this man should be killed. And my picture was all out there. And most friends were scared that I would be killed. And I said, why would anybody kill me? So I left that hospital, and immediately the threats were real. Even Boko Haram, the leader of Boko Haram, made a video. He was supposed to be discussing about the girls he just kidnapped. That was April 2014. So he just kidnapped the Chibok girls, and in reply to the world, now he opened his remarks with the case as myself, and he said that boy from Kano that left Islam, he's a contractor for the Jews, he's a contractor for the Americans. This is why we are warning you about education. This is why you have to leave the religion. So he was threatening me in the video. Then he went on to threaten that his God has mandated slavery as legit, and so no government could ever come to tell him that slavery is illegal. So he has sold the girls to slavery, and no one could dare question him. And this is the religion. This is the argument I always kept giving them, that the religion has already mandated jihad, slavery, terrorism, rape in captivity. All these things are allowed. So these are the arguments I was making, but you know, it's blasphemy. If I was saying this in Nigeria, probably by now you guys would start looking for how to get me out again. So now immediately Boko Haram threatened to kill me, and Boko Haram is killing northern Nigerian Muslims, and northern Nigerian Muslims are now crying that Mubarak should be killed. You could see the circle. I was trying to save them, and they're crying I should be killed, and Boko Haram is killing them and looking to kill me, and there was no alliance. So this is how it ended up. So I had to leave Kano State, and we've had to forget about the masters. That was how I never left Nigeria. So immediately I got to Abuja, the US Embassy were making arrangement and everything. But then, you know, I don't know whether this is my own.
You love Nigeria, so you don't want to leave. You love Nigeria, so you didn't want to leave. And
even at that moment, the Americans were telling me about leaving, and I was telling them about going to Kano. So this is how I think we're wired as Northern Nigerians. Even now, I want to go home. Immediately after my release, 364 days ago, this is just 2 days to an anniversary of freedom. Yeah. So immediately I was released from prison. I flew home to Kano. I was released in Abuja, but the magnet was calling me home. So I had to go home. And I flew. I was as quiet as I can. I was telling people, don't tell anyone, don't scare people, but I have to go home. So a decade ago, this is how it happened. I had to go back home. That was the Eid festivities. And I went home. And people were saying, they said he went crazy. People saw me on the streets. You know, I was going home, I was trekking. And a few friends that have known me, and I've seen the BBC, you know, the posts and about Boko Haram. Are you not scared? And people were like, and especially there was Ebola at the moment. That Ebola just came around that time. So people were like, what are you doing in Kano? I said, this is home. Why should I run away? Why should people be scared? So I stood my ground and I came back home, and I was only prepared to leave Kano again because I had a job in Kaduna State. So the Americans were very scared. Some of them were crying that definitely you're going to be killed. And I said, I will not be killed. I may be killed, but I was confident that most probably nothing will happen. And especially last year, this is the same thing I did. Immediately I was released from jail. I flew into Kano. I went to meet my mother. I went to meet friends, and I went around to meet family and extended family members. Everyone was praying, you're better, and everything else. And even as I reached Germany, the moment the Eid came, that was just June, that was why I had to go to another city. I took the train overnight because I'm so connected to my culture that I want to go to meet my people and celebrate the Eid together with them. This is why I feel even if I'm here for 5 years, 10 years, I have to go home. I can't really belong anywhere else but home.
I understand. I mean, home is home. And I mean, if you love your family, it's very difficult. It's the plight of and the dilemma for a lot of atheists. So yes, you've spoken a lot about everything. So you know, there's time is running out. I don't even know which other questions to ask. But okay, let's go back to your activism when you were elected as interim president or president of Humanist Association of Nigeria. You were very vocal and all that, and you said you did some work for Almajiri children. So like, who are Almajiri children, and how were you caring for them? What's going on now?
Okay, so even as a Muslim,
very briefly, it's almost 6 o'clock, 1 hour already gone. I know there are already some questions. Someone was asking about whether you would have been stoned or how you would, they were planning to kill you once you reject Islam, like what the punishment is. But we'll come to the question and answer section. For now, yeah, about Almajiri children. Yeah.
Okay, so now 2 centuries ago, as I told you, there were several jihads before then, but the biggest one, the one that had the most impact on my part of the world is still the Osman Danfodio jihad, which is in 1804, which my ancestors participated in. So it created so much demographical change in the Sahel region that there are so many orphans, because one, it was killing men of fighting age were dying and leaving their children. Then also there were the war captives. They mostly capture women for slavery, and these women came with their children. And also they were raping the women, so they were reproducing more children. And this jihad happened for like, I think about 4 decades. And it was, the Hausa community is Muslim. It has been Muslim since the 10th century AD. So the jihad only came to kill Muslims and enslave those they could, because this is another tribe, the Fulani tribe, fighting for political domination of the Hausa tribe, but they came with the cloak of the jihad, and this is how it was happening. So it created within a few years as so much number of children through this jihad and rape and captivity and whatever, that the community, the agrarian community, could no longer cope with the number of children. So the only thing they could do is just to let the children go and beg for food. So they were given out to tutelage, where tutors will now teach them the Quran. And also in preparation, if you had read about the Janissaries, these are the captive Christian children in Europe, where the Ottoman Turks were capturing children from Hungary, from Bulgaria, from other parts of those Eastern European Caucasus. They were taking these children, then they would make them into an elite force as the last line of defense for the Ottoman throne, for the defense of the Ottomans. This is an elite force of 10,000, mostly Christian European children that were the defense of the empire. So now you come back here, you come back to northern Nigeria. They wanted to replicate such kind of thing with the Almajiris. This is what they wanted to do. The Almajiris are supposed to be the soldiers of tomorrow. So they were there, and this is why no matter how hard you try to fight Almajiri system, because they hope these children will be the ones that will fight to bring back the Sharia in northern Nigeria when everyone else has gone. So the Almajiris are just there because they are supposed to be guardians of the faith. So, and they grow up to be the clerics. These are the clerics that are leading the northern psyche now, politically. Whatever sermon you hear, whatever the deliberations you hear about the northern opinion on any political matter, on any religious matter, you could bring Child Rights Act, you could bring child marriage ban. These are the clerics that would counter it. These are the clerics that got me arrested, because they were from this system. They grow to now be above the society. They didn't go to school. They were under the tutelage. They were dedicated to the Quran. And so when they grow up, now they are the leaders, because spiritually they are the leaders.
So how were you helping them? Were you just creating awareness about the situation, or you actually helping some of the children, or what was happening?
Okay, so my father was leading a societal reorientation agency in Kano State about 2-3 decades ago. So I was observably seeing how I could bring change. So I would write notes or essays, as I mentioned earlier. I would give my father that this is what you present to the governor, because he was very close to the governor. A lot of them got passed. And one of these was reforming the Almajiri system, because the navel of the system is in Kano State, my home state. If Kano could change it, the whole region would change it. So I was trying to convince the governor through my father to change the Almajiri system and reform them and bring them back to their families and their parents. But the governor felt it's too big a case to handle. So he said, okay, let the children of the elite also bring their children and reintroduce the Almajiri system in a more broader way. So now he forced the commissioners and the elite of the community to put their children in the Almajiri system, whereas they were going, yeah, so it was not really a solution. So I decided to write northern governors. I was passing letters to northern governors. None of
Yeah.
them picked.
So there's a lot of lobbying. Yeah.
Exactly. So now I wrote something, and I was lucky as I was graduating from university. I had a machine that, as my project, I designed for water purification. And so the Ministry of Science and Technology in Abuja sent a permanent secretary to come and commission the project on my behalf. And immediately she came, I had the opportunity. So I bundled two letters. One I addressed to the president, the other I addressed to the vice president. And I said, please pass this letter. And I wrote one copy for her. I said, please pass this letter to the president. And she felt, this Hausa boy, they call us Malo illiterates. This Hausa boy, what are you giving me? So she wouldn't touch the letter. She told her PA to pick the letter. And she took her jeep and they left. And immediately, within 2 hours, I started getting calls from this lady because she has read the proposal. And she said, wow, you wrote this by yourself? I said, yes. Really, you have a good idea. I will make sure I pass it to the president. And this is how it got to the president. And immediately, because the president then was a Christian, Goodluck Jonathan, he immediately brought about a 500 school program, 500 buildings in several states in the region, 500 schools to reintegrate these children back into the system. So he started this, they brought back the children. They were numbering about 8 million then. So these 500 schools could only house maybe 200,000, 300,000, but it was a start. He wanted to reform the system. And I made the connection that if you don't tell this, it will lead to a jihad uprising will come, and you have a ready-made soldier children that would be recruited. So the president really wanted to race against it. And immediately during those times, that was when Boko Haram came about. And then the northern region didn't want that reform to happen. And so they voted the president out. So he lost the election. So I was doing what I can, but what I could in my own personal level.
Yeah, I think a top-down approach is also sometimes
no, actually,
it can help a lot.
In my life, I've grown with so many Almajiri children. You could remember I told you friends that came to argue I must be removed from the psychiatric hospital. These are Almajiris I adopted. Not really adopted, but I would adopt for my father. So in the house, I think over the years, I adopted more than 20 to 50 Almajiris for my father to cater for. Yeah, they became my friends. I don't eat my food until I bring them over. And so most of them now are my brothers that we could call ourselves brothers in the house. So in my own personal capacity, I've done a lot, but this is what I wanted to do at the bigger scale where I could just get the system banned. And some of them really got adopted by other families. You see, the solutions really were going through, but it's not really a solution. Adopting one here, two there, three there in other homes, it was not really the final solution. And sometimes you would hear of a big story that an Almajiri has stolen maybe food from someone and they would burn their hands. This is a child that we rescued. So he stole bread from a bakery, and the baker took both his arms and put them in the oven, and they burnt off the hands. So I had a friend with an organization, I think you may know Hank Pelizier. So we discussed how we can get prosthetic arms for the kids and medical.
Wow.
So these are one of the things, and I think we have some blankets and other things for a lot of them in schools. And I think during 19, we started something. Immediately before my arrest, we were delivering supplies because these were times they cannot really go out begging. They were really hungry.
I think we have to, I commend you on this, and I'm hoping that you can do more, even if it's from afar, to raise funding and also find other ways to reach out to authorities there to see how they can assist. But this is really sad. I mean, we don't have such a case in Ghana that I know of. So it's really sad that children should go through this, especially. But I can see how, I mean, indoctrination starts from childhood. So this could have been any one of us. So yes, let's talk about your arrest and also, your life in prison. Just 5 minutes of that. Like, what happened? It was April 28th. I spoke to you, I think, a month before that, because I just wanted us, to catch up with the work you were doing with the Human Rights Association of Nigeria. And the next thing I know, I've been told that you've been arrested. And yeah, I mean, we knew you were receiving some death threats, but brave Mubarak would not leave. He would just stick around and continue with his life. And yeah, that was very, very brave. And so, but we also didn't see it coming. We didn't see it coming that you were going, it was going to be that serious that you'd have been arrested. So what happened? What happened?
Okay, so most times I had death threats, since the time it was out in 2013, 14. I had received death threats, and it's normalized for me that anyone could threaten to kill me, but would they ever find me? No, but I don't really give my address to anyone. And the only people capable of tracking a phone could be only government. So there were also instances that people in government actually threatened me. I think a military man has threatened me, policemen have threatened me, but these are individuals just carrying to their heads their personal feelings into the profession. And so during the COVID-19, what really happened was that these people with these threats now had time because there was a lockdown. So
Yeah,
they had time to mobilize. The
yeah,
internet was not shut down, so they could really mobilize and make an impact because it has been 5, 6 years of nuisance of atheism in northern Nigeria. They're not really happy
yeah,
that I'm not yet dead, and no one is doing anything about it. So they made these. I think they made arrangements to get me killed because they actually gathered intelligence, their kind of intelligence, that I am home in Kano and doing my own blasphemy things and criticizing Islam. So they actually went home looking for me to kill me. They went to several homes of my relatives asking that I should be brought for killing. This is what I heard. And each family member would tell them, Mubarak has not lived here for about 5, 7 years now, so you can't really see him. And so immediately they reached home. I think what I heard is that my father now made a call to the commissioner of police, laying a formal complaint that I'm bringing trouble to his home, even from wherever I am. And so the commissioner picked up interest because most times in our culture, you don't really touch children of big men until those big men have laid the way that,
they've
okay, I'm
allowed
not
you. Yeah,
aside. Exactly. So they have to give that consent. If my father hasn't given any consent, no one would touch me, even with threats. They could threaten you, but they can't really get you. But now, immediately, he has laid that complaint. This is what the government would really want. The assumption the government had initially, and the idea that my father sold to them, because he didn't want the attention about anything about Mubarak. So is that Mubarak has been diagnosed mentally ill, so let's just forget about him. He's just a stupid madman. So people have already assumed I was ill. So now they had time and they would go to Facebook and really find what I write and what I do. There is no difference from my blasphemy of 2014 or 2016 or 2018 or 2020. There's no difference, just that now they have time. And not just that they have
yeah.
time, also I was
So
countering.
which one was the Facebook post? It was I don't know what was the actual Facebook post that they said was so offensive that they needed.
Okay, it was COVID-19. Prophet TV Joshua came out to tell people that he has the exact date that COVID-19 would end. And he has the healing powers to end COVID-19. And also the people in northern Nigeria refused to adhere to the protocols of the COVID-19 isolation and other lockdown procedures. So they were coming out to protest that this is a conspiracy against the mosque, that they said no more prayers in the mosque. This is Western conspiracy. So I was trying to really argue, just the way I was desperately arguing against the jihad of Boko Haram 5 years earlier. Now I'm desperately arguing about how you're supposed to really abide by the COVID, because it was killing people and they don't really know it. They are just crazy. So I switched to the local language, to the Hausa language, to bring about this kind of rational thought. And especially these kind of, it reached a wider audience because 80% wouldn't really understand what
Yeah,
I was saying in
no.
English. And now I wrote it in Hausa. So I was arguing against Prophet TB Joshua, and I said, well, although he's a fraud, but at least I prefer him to my own former prophet Muhammad, because at least he's only defrauding people, but he's not killing people. So I said, at least he's not engaged in terrorism. This is all I wrote. So now they did the other arguments that what it means is that he's calling our prophet a terrorist, so he is blaspheming, and then he has already left Islam. That other offense that they hadn't really got rid of me from, and then they started bringing posts. So they just picked random posts, and immediately the trial started in 2022. They started discovering more posts, and I realized if they go back 10 years, maybe I'll get 1,000 years. It was not 24. It was 16 years. So they got few more posts to add during the trial. So they had to take the trial backwards because they wanted to add 3 more posts. I said there is no flying horse. I put a picture of a donkey, I think, and I said horses. There are no flying horses because the prophet claimed that he flew on a flying horse. These are normal atheist memes that we shared on Facebook. It was not really too big to handle, but now they had the time, and this is what they could use. For now, if, for example, this kind of exchange I'm having with you, if they had the time, now they're busy in their markets, but if there was a lockdown, this is enough to get me killed or to go and kill Christians in northern Nigeria. Because don't forget that if there was a blasphemy in Paris on Charlie Hebdo or in Denmark, people in northern Nigeria will look for a Christian business to destroy, and they would look for any Nkechi they could find to kill. This is, you've read the Deborah story, you read other stories. I think I only got saved because I'm from the tribe. So they abducted me and they took me into Kano. If they had kept me in Kaduna State, it wouldn't have lasted that long. But taking me back home, this is where 100% they could keep me forever. They could have kept me forever. The pressure you people pressured on the government is what led to the speedy trial. You could call it a speedy 5 years. The judge gave me 40 years, and I could have served those 40 years. They don't care. And there were times they were boasting because I was put in a prison of a predominantly Muslim population. And they told me, if you like, don't pray. Your name is Mubarak. If people realize you're not praying, they'll kill you and we can't protect you. So I had to pray before I could get access to Leo Igwe and the lawyer. And so I had to be a Muslim because in prison, you can't really come and say you don't want to pray. They can't handle that. They really can't. You're either a Muslim or you're a Christian. The Christians are no more than 50 in a prison of 2,000 people. So you can't identify with the Christians. So you have to just be a Muslim. And they brought me with no warrant. There was no paperwork. It was all later they decided to do all the paperwork. They just brought me there just to see how far I can go. And they told me, some of them, when they saw, I don't know how they got information that I'm leaving Nigeria, because one of the captives, one of those that took me and made the arrangements with my father to take me into Kano, actually made a call to me apologizing that I think they expected I would be dead or I will never be out. Now I'm out, I'm leaving Nigeria, and they expected a backlash. Maybe I'm going to CNN and mentioning names, and these are big people that could be in trouble. But I don't want to really, I have never faced them, even when they took me and force medicated me. I didn't go back to them to fight them or to bring about legal challenges for anyone. I don't want to arrest anyone. I don't want more trouble. So they would beat me today, and tomorrow they'll see me and I'll hug them and smile and I'll tell them I'm just an atheist. I'm not growing any horns, and I'm not against you. I'm against the ideology, and you know it's an ideology that is our problem in this part of the world. And so as immediately they called and they are trying to apologize. Even as I went to Kano, I went to the police headquarters where they kept me for months. Even in the police headquarters, it was about conversion. They were just telling me to convert. It's because I refused to convert, they took me to jail. And I could remember they were asking, who is this Leo Igwe? He's the one that indoctrinated you.
A big shout out to Leo. Leo is here. A big shout out to Leo Igwe, Dr. Igwe. Thank you so much. And also to your lawyer. I mean, he stood by you for
Indeed.
5 years. And
Indeed.
I mean, to the entire international humanist community, especially to Humanist International. I mean, we were all panicking. What do we do? What do we do? Especially the first 6 months, you were not allowed to see a lawyer. We were very worried. You know, there were moments where we don't even know if you were alive or dead. And it was very scary. Like, it was like a movie to me because I was like, I know you. So it's like, how can somebody I know like be going through this? It's like, surreal. So yeah,
Actually,
they
I
are just
think I
really
think the most indeed the most traumatic period was before I had legal representation, because this was the time they made me a Muslim. This was the time they told me I could die, and I knew I could die. If anyone
but
discovered that this is that
but
Mubarak, they
also
could kill
I
me.
was told that they can't kill you because you are not Muslim. So I was scared that if you had converted in prison, why didn't they kill you then? Because blasphemy cases are usually for Muslims who blaspheme, rather than if you are non-Muslim. I don't know what's
Okay,
the understanding about that. Yeah.
okay. You have to understand the tribal aspect of this all. If immediately the police took me, because these are Muslim policemen of the federal, they are working for the federal government, but they were just doing their thing as a cultural, uh, maybe whatever they had in their minds. So immediately they took me. They asked, "Which tribe are you?" So I immediately switched to the Hausa language because this is the ultimate protection. If I was an Igbo man, I assure
Wow.
you, in that prison I'll be killed. If I were a non-Muslim, if I came from the south, even if I came from Kaduna State, which is just in the north, but it has Muslims and Christians. So if you came from anywhere other than the culture, the tribe, my tribe, you are going to be killed. The only way I survived it is because of that tribal attachments, because I speak their language, I wear their kind of clothing. And
Yeah.
so their brain cannot really handle violence against me. While even though they would hate me, but they can't really
Yeah.
believe it's me, because most times they would agree, even when the judge read whatever I wrote, they would just look in confusion. But you are us, you're part of us. Why are you writing this? Why are you against us?
Yeah.
So they have that mental,
Yeah.
what do you call
Yeah, I know
maybe
you are always wearing a
they can't
kaftan, jalabia. You still didn't eat pork and all that when I first
really,
met you. So I was like, there's nothing that shows me that you are also atheist, other than what you say, because you look and
it's
do everything
indeed.
like a Muslim. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even to this moment, I told people when they give me alcohol, I'll say, okay, if I taste it, it tastes like spirits and it's not really good. I don't really like it. And people think, okay, some people would jeer at me, you be converted so that you have women, so that you take alcohol, so that you take pork. I'll tell them, well, this is what you want to do in
You have
paradise. So if I
women.
did it here
I think
on
Muslims
earth,
have more women, isn't it? They can marry up to
not
four
just that,
women.
not,
So.
not just that, but if you die, you're going to heaven full of women. This is the
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
you are
yeah.
going to,
Definitely.
but it's white women, it's Arabic women. I always challenge the black Muslim girls.
That's why
I
the
say
men are
that
not living
in paradise
Islam.
they will,
Wow. Okay. I
yeah,
get it.
so yeah, so and I argue to them. I say, well, you also want women, and someone like me, you say I want women. Well, in reality, it is just our culture. This is what we are groomed to live up to. But at least I'm not enslaving myself through the years just to go and die and have the women. If I want to
So
have the
now,
women, I
now
want to
I
have them.
have a very deep understanding of this. It's about women. Basically,
It's
that's what
about
this
women.
is.
It's about women.
I mean,
It's about
yeah, yeah. Forget the flying horses and it's about women. Okay, now I get it. Like,
see. There was a time.
yeah.
There was a time I explained the fertility workshop to a Muslim. To a Muslim, I told a cleric that what you're flying over to Saudi Arabia to do is actually to go and visit the black stone. The black stone is like this. If you Google it, you'll see it like this. Then I Googled for this cleric and I Googled infertility worship. And I told him exactly what this shape is. And he compared and he was shocked. You are supposed to go to Mecca just to kiss this on the Kaaba. This is what it is. This is fertility worship, and most times, if you see the female genitalia there in fertility worship, you always find the phallus side. So people would ask me, okay, where is the phallus? Then I'll show them exactly close to the Kaaba where the phallus is. And it was there, it was standing, they call it Makam Ibrahim. It is a phallus. It was the ancients that were worshipping, and there were before Islam, the circumambulation is naked. Everyone, male, female, is naked. You just go
Wow.
naked and circumambulate, then kiss the vagina, then come and pray by the stone, which is the palace. Then you do all these things. Then you come and reject Hinduism. You
Yeah.
reject all those religions that are doing the same thing. It's female worship. And I told them, respect the
I
women.
guess.
If you love their body parts, respect them, love them. You don't really have to hate
Exactly.
them.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
worship their body parts, but they hate them. They really hate them. So
Yeah.
it's a sad
All right.
development.
So
So
let's move
in
on.
conclusion,
Sorry.
this is what happened. And the trial was concluded that I was given 40 years. It was James Ibor that begged, and it was changed to 24
24.
plus 16
Wow.
years to be served concurrently. So I was supposed to serve 40 years. Yeah, James Ibor and my sister came along also to plead on my behalf. And James Ibor made the argument that I'm a first-time offender. So the judge now made it 24 years. I was supposed to
24
serve 40
years.
years. And without your activism, they would never have allowed me go. Even if a judge would release me, I would be killed outside of that court. It's very
Yes.
obvious. And especially
Exactly.
if I was not from the tribe, the whole prison would conspire, because they did it before. They would conspire for people to come in and behead me in the prison. They did it before in that same prison. Someone was there for blasphemy, and the person conspired, and people came through. They knew how to get him, and they brought him out of his cell and beheaded
Wow.
him. And then they put the head on a spear, and they went around Kano State to sing the jihad songs that our ancestors were singing.
So
So
what can we
it's
do
a
about
today.
blasphemy in Nigeria and Africa as a whole? I have asked lawyers in Ghana because I'm not conversant with all the laws, but luckily we don't have blasphemy laws in Ghana, and that's why we are comfortable to ask these questions and talk about these things, because if not, most of us will be and arrest as well. Yeah, we don't have blasphemy. We are hoping it doesn't happen. Now that atheists are coming out open, it's possible that it could trigger some people to think that we need those laws now. Because even coming out as an atheist, putting up a billboard and all that, it's already been, taken as offensive to others. So, what do you think we can do about blasphemy in Nigeria? And then your advice to all Africans and African humanists. Quick one. Then we go to our question and answers.
Okay, I think blasphemy, it's up to, I think, the government. If the government hadn't taken side, I've been accused of blasphemy and apostasy for a decade now, but it would have been the status quo, just accusations and threats. The government hadn't made any action to protect me or anyone else. This is why after I was taken, people had to run for their lives, and a lot of people were in trouble. And a few individuals, I think I could remember one that was declared dead by his family. We knew him as an atheist in Kano, and the family declared he's dead. We know what happened. He's killed privately. So the blasphemy is not really what the problem is. The problem is what the government does with that accusation. So in our situation, especially in northern Nigeria, is that the government could take sides, because if they have enough numbers, then they are political force, and politicians would always want to, play with these kind of statistics, especially if they see that it would please you. By taking me into custody, the party could now claim, I think they made the claim that they are for Islam, they are for Muslims, they are for this, they are for that. So the government could at least be neutral, especially if we are secular enough. Our constitution is supposed to be secular, but it has been hijacked. So the blasphemy, I think if we could argue that the government should stay neutral. We are a minority, we are supposed to be protected, but we are not. But at least for the government to be neutral or to protect at-risk people. For example, you want to convert from Islam to Christianity, you are in trouble. You're in big trouble, but at least you have an institution that could rise to protect you. My problem, why I was unique, why I'm an outlier, is because when I left the religion, I didn't enter into a recognized institution within Nigeria. We don't have the institution. This is what efforts I was making as a humanist president, to bring about the institutions where we can have something of a structure that we can depend upon. So if you don't have the institution, if I converted to Christianity, I would have been relatively safe. My family would be heartbroken, but I would have a big institution to protect me. Even before in the prison, before I could get in touch with Dr. Leo, It was the church I went to, and the church offered me 2 lawyers, but they were rejected at the federal capital. They were rejected everywhere else. The lawyers were there trying to help me to get me out. It was the church that helped with all those things. And arrangements were made that since they don't want to declare that they have kidnapped me, which was obvious, then they should make an announcement that I'm dead. This is what the church helped me to do, to announce that I'm dead. If I was dead, then they would have to come and admit whether I'm alive or I'm dead or I have any rights. So the government could really do that. And especially in my own perspective, I think reaching out to Muslims or to religious people, you hardly hear blasphemy against, from the Christian angle. You could insult Jesus, you could desecrate the Bible. No one would bat an eye. No one would put your life in danger. It mostly is from my part of the culture. So if we could be engaging Muslims to realize that going against your religion or criticizing your religion is not actually insulting you. This is an idea. I'm criticizing an idea, especially if it's a bad idea, especially if it makes you uncomfortable and unsafe, just as it does to me. It's not just me. Islam kills Muslims. Islam's biggest victim is the Muslim, especially the Muslim woman, then the Muslim communities. Now, especially the minorities, which is us, and then Christians, and then any minority. And if they can't find any of us, then they would find people within the religion that are a minority sect and start killing them, such as the Yazidis, such as the I think the ones in Sueda in Syria. These are little sects that they could find and kill. They were killing Shiites for 20, 30 years in northern Nigeria just because they don't belong to the mainstream religion. So this is how it has always been. It's always about an Islamic problem. And you can't really criticize Islam without people picking up the offense. So me reaching out to them, this is why I always try to reach out to the Muslim community, even here in Europe, even back home. I try to reach out to them that criticizing is one thing, but loving you is another thing entirely. I love you, you're my people. But I have to tell you where the ideology is killing us, where the ideology is keeping our region backwards. It's against children's freedom, especially with the Almajiri children. It's against women's freedom, where the government that brought about a law against child marriage was defeated and it was celebrated because the religion is against that. We brought about Child Rights Act. We brought about Child Rights Acts and it was defeated and they celebrated it. If today in fact, just yesterday, I was watching a video where there were contractors that could come and end the kidnapping and the raping in the northern parts of the region that's happening currently for 13 years. That's aside Boko Haram. This is another terror group just killing and raping and marauding around villages. So now, when they heard that the contractors are coming from another country, they said they don't want it. They would rather die of terrorism that another culture would come. Anybody white, they'll just call them Jews. Anybody that is non-member of the tribe, they'll just call them contractors for the Jews, and then they will come to change our conservative peace, whatever peace they claim to have, and we don't have the peace. So this is it. The government has really secularized.
Okay, so it's about the government having a secular, following the secular constitution and also separation of church and state. So yes, what is your advice to all Africans and African humanists? One sentence, and we can go to the questions. A lot of people are eager for that.
Institution. The sentence is about institution. We in 30, 40 years will all be gone, but if we can bequeath an institution, we just have to institutionalize atheism. We have to normalize it. We have to bring about the institutions so that we have something beyond us for the others to come. If we had a few institutions maybe from 40 years ago, we don't have to be struggling as we are now. And we're not really recognized because we are still on the fringes of society. We are not mainstream. Why I'm trying to penetrate my culture.
But why don't you see that a lot of atheists, institutionalizing it makes it look like another religion. Already we have a lot of groups. Humanist International is over 70 years old. And some people would see it as another religion. So what do you mean? What do you mean by institution? And like, are you saying that we should be? We are an organized movement as with the groups, and what we do is to protect each other and to support each other as non-religious people, but and more as a community than as an institution. So if you can clarify that,
Okay, so what we did in the Nigeria Humanist Association, immediately we organized ourselves into a community. We got registration. This is a milestone. So this is a recognition by government. So to me, this is an institution. It doesn't have to be a physical
Okay.
structure, but part of it is normalizing, as I said, normalizing with the communities, reaching out. I've already seen how we are doing that. We are doing that a lot, but we don't have, for example, an address. For example, if I said I will have an address, a physical address in Nigeria for atheism, or I put up a billboard, I know it will not last 24 hours. This, your billboard is an institution. It's another step towards an institution. So by institution, I really don't mean this church, something
A
that
church or something,
people go
yeah.
on Fridays.
Okay.
No, but a recognition, mainstreaming. We are not still mainstreaming our humanism,
Yes.
especially now that we are recognizable by society.
Yes.
This is especially why we have to penetrate in rather than just isolate ourselves. It's a risk, I know, but this is why I try as much as possible to penetrate and be recognized, and
Yes.
so that one day when someone changes their religion, you won't say he is a crazy person, or he has to die,
Yes.
or she has to die, something like that. So mainstreaming, maybe I use the word institution because I already
Yeah.
see that other religions are far ahead of us. And also, if we have this office, let's say an office address, or a secretariat, or a conference room, or a lecture hall, or a university, I plan to someday have a school, maybe secondary school, humanist secondary school. It's an institution. We have it in Uganda, I think, Kasese Humanist School and other humanist
Yeah.
schools in East Africa. And you could have it in West Africa. I think there was a proposal.
The
And
problem
amongst
with
the
those schools, from what I know, is they are not churning out humanists as such. So
really?
yes, it's a humanist school. It's more of they are helping a lot of deprived children to get an education than I see it as so it's an act of humanism than it is a humanist school. And so we need to have humanist schools. And actually we have someone in our lineup, a speaker from Europe, who is actually a headmistress of a humanist school. And so yeah, we'll have the opportunity to talk to her later. So now, thank you so much, Mubarak. Thank you so much. This has been very interesting. I wish we could go on and on and on, but time is running. We have 30 minutes left, and I'd like to give the opportunity for people to ask questions. I think there was one question I wanted you to answer. I think it's from somebody called Fidel, who mentioned about what the law says about if you reject Islam, whether you be stoned, like in what form would they want to kill you, beheading and so on. I don't know. I don't want to know, but yeah. And someone is interested to know
Yes.
that. And I think I want to make a quick comment. I've seen a comment about calling Muslims illiterate. I would like to say that we would like to respect people's right to religion. As humanists, we do respect people's right to religion, even if we do not agree with their ideologies. And I know a lot of Muslims who are definitely not illiterate. They are very highly educated people. And so please, let's respect people's religion and their right to religion. You don't have to respect the religion itself, but you can respect their right to religion. Yes, thank you. So Mubarak, please, over to you, and then we'll move on to the question and answer. I don't know if Sammy can help me with how people are raising. I know Harrison has raised up his hand for a while now. So after him, we'll see who else needs to ask a question. Okay, over to you, Mubarak.
Okay, the Sharia, as it's practiced today in the Middle East and in Islamic countries, stipulates that whoever leaves Islam should be killed. There are verses in the Quran that supports this, and there are verses and the Hadiths. These are the sayings of the Prophet that are outside of the Quran that also support this. So if you left Islam in Afghanistan, you'll be killed. If you left in most of the Middle Eastern countries, you'll be killed. If you left in Pakistan, the government may not really kill you, but the people, the mob, will kill you. This is the biggest problem Islam has. If the
And
government is not
how is it stated that they should be killed, or is it just I don't
okay,
know,
the
like
Quran, what the
sometimes
Quran said,
stoning
what the
or
Quran said, yes, what the Quran said is that whoever wages war on God or changes his religion from here to here, he should be beheaded or he should lose his limbs in opposite sides, meaning the right arm and the left leg, or the left arm on the right leg, or crucified, which is in the Quran as well, or crucified, or exiled. So the least punishment you could mete out to those kind of people is exile. But then there is also a specific hadith that said, whoever leaves the religion, kill him. The specification comes that the Prophet said that the community will not sit on that day that they had someone has left their religion until he is killed. This is a direct order by the Prophet, and which a billion Muslims are ready to carry out. And it has happened a lot of times. Especially now, I told you, if I were non-Hausa, I would have been killed maybe a decade ago. It doesn't even have to reach the courts.
So what do you say about those who say that when it came to the terrorist attacks, a lot of Muslims say, oh, but that is not Islam?
No,
but
they're
you're
just being
stating that
either.
this is the Quran.
Well, there is the hypocrisy about it, where you know, but you don't want people because you have friends, but you don't want them to see the religion as bad. So a lot of Muslims would try to cover Islam in that aspect. We call them either cognitive dissonance or muddying the water so that it's not really clear. They'll just try to bring about maybe because there are preceding verses in the religion that give freedom of religion. But these are verses when Prophet Muhammad was living among the polytheists in Mecca. So these are when there was so much tolerance in Islam, and the verses are still there. But when he went to Medina and he has the power and he started the jihads, then all those verses are supposed to be abrogated and backward looking verses. So the Sharia is always about which is the latest injunction. This is the one that is most applicable. So it's when you can't apply this that you could go backwards and look for other verses. And the supreme is the Quran, then the Hadith. So the fact that Saudi Arabia practices it, the fact that you would be beheaded in Saudi Arabia and hung by the crane in Iran shows you that this is part of the Sharia. And this is what it's supposed to be. You are given options. The first option is you are given 3 days to recant your blasphemy or your apostasy. If you are not able to do that after those 3 days, then you are subjected to a mental or psychiatric evaluation. Then, if it's determined by a doctor that you are sane, you are really in your senses when you said that, then you are beheaded. These are the 3 categories. This is the ultimate. If I was in Saudi Arabia, I would probably be dead by now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Mubarak, for that. I just wanted to understand the. Oh, by the way, my name is Harrison Mumia, president of the Atheists in Kenya Society. And I met Mubarak when he was in Nairobi. He looked very healthy. You know, after all that being in jail, I thought I'd be meeting somebody. He was actually very jumpy, which was really nice. I wanted to ask in terms of the legal system, because in Kenya, you can't be arrested and then be taken to jail for like even 1 month. You have to be presented in court within 24 hours. I just want to understand, how does the Nigerian legal system work, where you can be arrested and you stay in jail for a long time before a judge hears your matter? How does that work?
Okay, we have the Constitution. You called Lagos, but actually we have 2 streams of laws applicable in the Constitution in Nigeria. When you mentioned Lagos, it's south of Nigeria. They don't have the penal code. The penal code is mostly for northern Nigeria because what is considered a penalty in the north could not really be a crime, but it's a penalty. So they inculcated the Sharia, the cultural differences, and put it in the Constitution as part of the jurisprudence. But in the South, you have the criminal code, which is the Lagos Code. You could call it Lagos Code or whatever. These are the codes that are more rational and more modern by the British. But when they came to the North and they realized it's a big trouble, and they have experience in India when they were on the Raj, so they decided to just give the North their own laws to handle. What they just wouldn't allow them to do is slavery. In 1936, they banned the slavery, and then they banned the preaching of Christianity because it became an upheaval. People are leaving Islam. That was a century ago. So they banned preaching of Christianity, which came with that blasphemy law and associated problems. So in the North, you have that penal code, and it's incorporating the Sharia and the Muslim grievance and whatever cultural pettiness we have there as part of the penal code, which you don't have in the South. So we have two systems. This is why when they took me in the center of Nigeria, they took me further into Kano. They don't have the jurisdiction, but they would claim whatever they can if they could present me in Kano. And they knew I would last the years, and then whatever appeal I have in the secular constitution, it would take me the years that it took me to get out. So the law also states that within 24 hours, you are supposed to present someone in court within 24 hours. So what the police kept doing with Dr. Leah Igwe, as I learned, was that they kept dribbling and prevaricating about my whereabouts. They would just declare I'm not there. I'm in Kaduna. They should look for me somewhere else. So they kept prevaricating with the hope that they could convince me if I don't have access to my people, the evil, which is you guys, then they could convince me, because they believed I was in a trance, maybe some magic in my head, and that if they could please me enough and convince me enough, then they could convert me. So there was no application of the Constitution in my case until when they realized they have to do the process. They've taken me for so long, and they've embarrassed themselves for so long by converting me to Islam, that they would have to do the paperwork to make it appear formal. They knew it was not formal. If I were to go back to court now and claim damages, I have a lot of compensation in the federal system. This is what is supposed to be. The problem is, before you do that with the resources, with the fight, and especially with the kind of trouble you could be in, being a blasphemer and an apostate, you may end up there before you could ever claim anything. So the best thing is to leave and then maybe fight it later. So this is what is happening. So they're supposed to charge me within 24 hours, but I didn't see the court until 24 months later.
Thank you. Isaac.
Okay, good evening to the house, and my name is Isaac Nana Fortune, and I'm from Ghana. Please, what I have is not about the question, but it's a contribution. You see, this religious movement uh, has always been brainwashing, and the main problem is that I think they have the government in those countries have tried to impose religion into schools. So apart from the home, you are being recruited when you are born into a family and they are Muslims, automatically you become a Muslim, and when you are Christian, you automatically become a Christian. And you see the government also imposing religion into schools has also helped in the brainwashing. So I think as time goes on, we should try and convince maybe the government in various countries to make it secular so that this religious movement will always not be in schools, because that is where the brainwashing starts and keep on. So by the time from nursery to the university, the person has already been brainwashed. So he doesn't ask questions about the religion, how this religion came about, and so on. So I think as time goes on, we should also try to teach the young people in the family. It shouldn't be online also. We should also try to be doing evangelism as the Christians and the Muslims have been doing, to be teaching the younger generation, because otherwise the younger people will still be recruited into those various religions, and we will have the same problem in the next generation. So this is the little contribution I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Isaac.
you.
I'll allow Mubarak to say some, but what I'll say is, yes, you're right. I mean, visibility matters, and that's why for some of us, we've put our lives and livelihoods on the line to still promote it. You know, Harrison is doing that in Kenya, Rick and Dean are doing that in South Africa, myself, you know, we are out there, but it's not easy fighting against billion-dollar institutions. that have been indoctrinating people since childhood. Yeah, and I think that maybe I wouldn't say we should evangelize, but we should let people know that there is an alternative. It's an alternative way to live or to think. And once we do that, that would help, you know. So we need more of programs like this. For me, I feel like it's not just programs, but any ideas that would raise awareness of alternative ways of thinking based on science, based on reason, based on rationality. We need more of that. It shouldn't be only Accra atheist or one or two other groups. More of us should do that. So thank you. Mubarak, how would you
Thank
want
you.
to respond to that?
I think you covered it. So this is what I have in mind too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more questions also? You know, I can't imagine what it was like living in prison, not knowing when you are coming out, not knowing what's going to happen to you every day. Like, how was it like? How was it like?
Well, I think immediately I was taken there, I concluded this is the end. I've reached the end. There were times in my 20s that I thought I will never reach my 30s. So immediately when I escaped that psychiatric hospital and I turned 30, then I said, wow, a miracle. I made it to 30. And when they took me in that time in prison, I thought this is the end. I never thought, because most times I am doing my thing, especially with the knowing that I'll end up dead. This is why it's very tough for me. Most of these decisions I take, I know it could really lead to my death, but I've already decided I will do it, even if I ended up dead. There are several near-death experiences I've had, but I think the toughest is the prison experience, exactly. The first 2 years before I reached Abuja. So I have also known, I didn't know much of trauma, I think, until the first trauma I had in the hospital only gave me streaks of gray hair. And my mother told me that I didn't have that 2 weeks ago when I went in. But when I came to that prison, I lost a memory for everything before from 2 years prior. I lost everything. It was wiped off. No phone numbers I could remember, no names. If I knew you before 2017, this is how I could remember Leo and others. But anyone I have known from 2018, 19, 20, I don't know them. The church sneaked a picture of Amina and my child, and I struggled to recognize that picture. Yeah, because I think there was the pastor that they were inmate pastors. So when he gave me, he realized I was looking deep and trying to make a connection. And he said, "Don't you recognize them?" I said, "Well, I don't know them." Then he said, "This is your family." And I looked. I said, "Wow, really?" So I don't have anything beyond 2018. My memory was wiped out. So now I have known what trauma is. And when I sat with a therapist online here when I reached Germany, and she played out a video and some slides that I was looking, I told her, I'm looking at a mirror. This is how I feel in my head. I've never felt that, but I tried to recover what I can of my memory. And I think there was a time, this is why they were asking who is Dr. Leo, because this is the only person I can remember in the atheism world.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I thought I'd die, but I don't really care that I lived or died as long as the message is passed. And also, I think gradually I came to realize that there are psychological tortures that you could go through, and it may never go. But this is more harmful than the physical torture. So people would ask me, have you been beaten? And I'll say no. Have you been maybe threatened? I'll say not directly, although they'll tell you are not ever gonna leave. You're never gonna live beyond that. And to their shock also, they never thought I would make it out. Most of them have concluded this is the end of the road for me. And I should tell you that also, as they converted me by force, immediately I had a government lawyer. This is before I got the contact from humanists. So the government offered a lawyer because I wrote a letter that I will kill myself. I didn't say I'll kill myself directly, but I said I will out myself to the inmates to kill me if they don't take me to court. So it became a big trouble for them. because I said I will no longer eat food, I will no longer drink water, and I will take
that's right.
exactly. And I said I will no longer join in the prayers because I'm not a Muslim. And also, I will, if people ask me who I am or what I was accused of, I'll tell them. They knew I would be killed if I told people. And so that rebellion actually was when I gave up. I said, since they're not going to take me to court, I don't care whatever happens. I'll just take my chance.
Well, we are very happy that you are here with us today. Bolela, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Rosalind, just also to alert you that there are questions in the chat as well. Sorry, Bolela.
Oh, okay. All right. Please read them to me. I can't seem to have access to the questions here. So Bolela and then.
Oh yes, I must commend you, Mubarak, for your spirit of forgiveness. I don't know. I left Christianity, and I find it very repelling to me. I mean, I would find it difficult even to get inside a church during a funeral and listen to the pastor talking all those things. But I see you being able to get into the community, do their traditions, wanting to go back to where you lived and to be with them. What makes you to have that affinity to the ideology that is actually out there to harm you?
Okay, thank you for your question, Balaga. So, firstly, I am a very cultural person, and I am too, I think, even the atheists feel I'm too emotional for atheism, because all those kind of stoicism, I don't feel it. I would prefer I live as a family man in my own village, in my hometown. And this is what I feel that I am for. I actually came out to save my people. I came out as an atheist because I felt they are going in the wrong direction. We have a trajectory of trouble. We are going to our deaths. Islam is leading us to our deaths. And my people are absolutely captured by this beautiful religion of Islam that they can't really see, that is destroying us socially and economically, as well as even spiritually, because they lost their conscience. They enjoy seeing the killings as long as it's a jihad. So it's me trying to reach out and how to solve my people's problem in my own way, in my own locality, that led to all these troubles. It was for them. It was really not about me. It was supposed to be saving them from the clutches of indoctrination and dogma and what troubles it's creating in our society that led me to this. And also about the culture thing you mentioned, we lost almost 99% of our culture. We had no culture whatsoever left about the Hausa culture or maybe the Northern Nigerian culture. It's all Islamic. So if I want to celebrate any holiday now, I don't have any. If there is a weekend, I celebrate it, but there is no festivity that I could engage with any family or people I grew up with. It's only the Eid I have. I go and celebrate Christmas, but these are people I met later in life, not the ones that I grew up with. And hopefully I'm trying as much as I can to normalize atheism, because they are still confused about me. Even the Muslims are confused that, okay, now you love us, you want to be part of us, but you cannot belong to us unless you subscribe to Saudi dogma. And I will tell them, no, it doesn't have to be like that. I named my child in the local language in Hausa, and the whole Hausa community rejected the name. Even my parents rejected the name. They want an Arabic sounding name, just as myself, that the name has to be Muhammad something or Al something or Ibn something. I told them, no, the name has meaning. It's in the local language, and it's your language, it's our language, but it's still not accepted. So you could see the trouble and the cognitive dissonance my people still have with the religion and culture, and especially with myself. So I want to live an example as an example to my people, that I could refuse to subscribe to any dogma that was brought to my people centuries earlier, and I'll still be called the good person of the community, because I still help. If I'm helping people with my own money or whatever resources I have, I don't really ask you where you come from or what religion you are. I help humanists, especially student humanists, but as well help Muslims and Christians in whatever form I can. And it has been my life. This is how I've ever lived.
Yeah.
Even in jail,
Thank you,
this is
Mubarak.
what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So there are two other questions I'm seeing in the chat. I don't know if you can see it yourself.
Okay, I've seen Dean Kruger. I want to give you light because I've seen that it's getting dark.
Yes. So Joel asks, is there any path for atheists to exist openly without provoking extreme backlash from religious communities, particularly within Islam? Does this mean silence is the only option, or must one be prepared for hostility, or maybe change can only come from the top down through governmental authority rather than individual expression? And Dean Kruger asks, what is next for Mubarak? And then we close. Yeah, we have maybe 7 minutes for you to answer that question.
Okay, the first is about what again? Please come again.
So I think Joel is trying to find out, do we keep silent? What do we do? Like, especially for Muslims, what should they do if they're leaving religion? Should they be prepared for hostility? Like how should they go about it? What's the best way for them to go?
Okay, so I
Or
try
should they
to
just rely
normalize.
on, or should we just rely on the government stepping in to do everything?
Okay, firstly, if we could normalize humanism and atheism, you see, in my part of the world, the moment they hear atheism, they are scared. But I try to emphasize the humanism as not just freedom of inquiry and freedom of religion and free speech, but also I try to bring about the compassion that we have, the empathy. I think we have more empathy than they do, because our conscience leads us to, I think, feel more towards the general human cause than most religious people, and especially the ethical part. I told an individual about my own kind of ethics, that I will not harm anyone, I will not do any evil or any bad thing, but it's not because I'm scared someone will torture me after I die. And if I did good, it's not because I'm expecting exchange from a spiritual deity to give me reward for that. I'm doing what I can to better the world, to better society, and especially I always emphasize to better the animal welfare that we live with, because I try to gauge people. I see people, I gauge them on how I see them treat animals. The moment if I remove the human aspect of it, then I will see compassion in animals as a way of expressing your kind of empathy and compassion towards another living thing. So, well, in this context, if we can live by these kind of ethics, because I've always said that I'd rather even be with a religious person that has good ethical, moral standards than just an atheist that is only declaring he doesn't believe, but then he's not doing anything else towards the betterment of the human story, the sapient. Yeah.
Okay, so Mubarak, what's next for you?
Okay, so I am here on the program. It's a 6-month scholarship by the German government, by the Institute for Foreign Relations here in Germany. It's about bringing atheists and individuals that have championed human rights and freedom of speech, and especially their works such as journalism, such as what I do, the activism I do. They bring you here for a 6-month program called a temporary relocation program, and they house you, they give you stipends for 6 months. So beyond that, it's up to you what you do with your life. If you feel that you can go back, it's now safe to your country, you can go back. There are individuals that came from Azerbaijan, from Russia, from Korea, from this place, Cambodia. So there are a lot of people that came from all over the world, and some of them have really been in jail, such as myself, and they can't really go back home. But I'm still exploring the possibilities of extending my stay because I feel 6 months is not enough to heal, to recover, and to gather back my strength. But I would want to go back home in a few years, but not immediately because I'm supposed to go back in October in 2 months. So I would seek either a scholarship pathway or another program such as this. I've tried as much as I can to avoid, even last year when I was released, to avoid claim of asylum. I was offered immediately visa. This is what I rejected a decade ago. This is what I hope I can avoid, immediate abandonment of my citizenship and trying to create a new life. I just turned 41. When I was taken, I was just 35. So I am trying as much as I can to have that leverage of living here or having the chance to remain here for a residency legally for a few more years, and then if everything is concluded, I go back home and I continue doing my work about Almajiris, about humanism, about normalizing, especially with my culture and my people, and see how I can reach out and bring about that kind of psyche that is tolerant to everyone else in my community.
All right. Thank you so much. Oh, Yao, do you have your family with you in Germany? How was your experience? Um, did you see that question, Mubarak? It's
Yes,
time
yes, I've
though,
seen.
and we have to leave.
No,
Is your
I'm
family
alone
with you
here.
in Germany?
Oh, they're in
Oh, okay,
Abuja.
he's alone there. Thank you so much, Mubarak. It's been very interesting. I mean, I wish we could do another hour, and I know some people might agree, but yeah, maybe we'll have you another time so you can tell us about this Islam thing and what really gets people so indoctrinated into it. You know, how do we deconvert more people if it's possible, or let people see? I'm not into deconverting people, but to let them see that that is not the only way to look at life or to look at the world. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, and I'm really happy you are even our first speaker. Please thank you all of you for joining in. We were expecting much more than this, about triple the number, but I'm very pleased with this. It will be on our YouTube channel, and so people can still watch it and see what's going on. If you haven't liked and followed Accra Atheist, please do, and you can always DM us for any more information. And if you are an atheist and we are not aware of it, please let me know you're an atheist, and we can put you on other platforms so you can have daily conversations with people of like minds. Yeah, looking forward to next month. We are having Dan Barker from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, a former evangelist from the age of 15 years, and is now a very renowned atheist. Also, you know, to tell his story from evangelism to atheism is going to be very interested. He's excited, and so are we. And I hope that more and more people join this. It's open to the public, so let's not only send it out to our atheist friends, send it to anybody at all to join in the conversation, and let's all you know, have the opportunity to ask the questions we want to ask and give the free inquiry that we are looking for everyone. Thank you all, and enjoy your evening. See you next month. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mubarak.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you.
Sam, you
See you
can stop
again
the
in
recording.
December. Yeah.
Yes. Have you stopped the recording? Hello.
Yeah,
Have
Ross.
you stopped the recording? Have you stopped the recording? I can still see.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Yes, it was really good. It was so interesting. I just had to keep.